Minecraft is a pretty old game already. Throughout its history, Minecraft had lots of features that developers were experimenting with. Some of those features were just experimental for testing, some were deleted because they were changed, outdated, or simply forgot by developers. Just like... Seriously, this unused villager is probably the most interesting mob that the game ever had for over 8 years, and yet we still have to use summon command to spawn this mob. Imagine to fight this mob during raid or inside of Woodland Mansion. Hey Mojang, do you remember Woodland Mansion? Yeah, a structure that once had a unique item, and after 1.14 this item became so common that nobody cares now about your mansion. About Illusioner. Illusioner is an unused illager that was added in 1.12. Just like other illagers, he attacks players, villagers, wandering traders, and iron golems within a 12 blocks range. He attacks with his spells and with his bow. He has two spells, a spell that blinds his opponent and a spell that summons duplicates and makes the Illusioner invisible. Just like I mentioned before, Illusioner unfortunately can only be spawned with the summon command. Some crafts that were removed in the game has been pretty bizarre and funny. Do you need arrow? You could craft one with an apple. That's right, a version of in-depth 0.31 released on January 28, 2010 that added the ability to craft had a crafting recipe of an arrow using apple. This was probably just to test new crafting feature. We could also use fire block to craft chainmail armor that was unobtainable and could only be crafted with this recipe until release version 1.3.1 through trading. It was also possible to craft enchanted golden apple using apple and 8 gold blocks, but due to a balancing, this crafting recipe was removed in version 1.9. In the in-depth version of Minecraft, players could take a screenshot of the map from an isometric perspective using F7. When the game captured an isometric image, it would save the current location of all mobs and show any and all alterations to the map the player had made that would be visible from the perspective of the sun at sunrise. The player would not be visible unless the player was in third-person view before taking the isometric screenshot. This feature was removed in InfDev due to the addition of infinite worlds. Some mods for newer versions partially recreate this feature. The Sky Dimension was a planet dimension in Minecraft intended to be the opposite of the Nether. The Sky Dimension was first announced when Notch tweeted a picture of the dimension. It was probably made to be like a heaven, because the Nether was considered to be like a hell. The Sky Dimension was not completely confirmed until Notch released an update via Twitter. The Sky Dimension was originally planned for the Adventure update, but Notch put it on hold until the Nether was more fun.
Those mods, I think. I'm gonna wait with adding the Skylands I was working on until the Nether is more fun.
Okay.
But Jep explained later that it didn't work so well because of how light is calculated. And so, the original concept of the Sky Dimension was later rebranded as The End. A dark place fittingly referred to as the end of the game, home to the Enderman and the Ender Dragon, and a total conversion of the original idea. A level previewer was a feature which was added in InfDev 2010-06-16-2210, but later removed in alpha version 1.1.1 due to a critical issue. If the player opened a world in a previewer, it would corrupt the world's level.dat file, along with the player's inventory. It was exclusive to the browser version of Minecraft. The level previewer was hosted on minecraft.net/infdev/preview.jcp and got removed between the 14th and 26th September 2010. However, it remained on the game's source code until snapshot 12W18A. Winter mode was a randomly occurring map type in alpha. It was added on July 9, 2010, in alpha version 1.0.4, and was the first biome to appear in Minecraft. Whether a world was in winter mode was determined with a 25% chance at creation. Winter mode was removed in alpha 1.2.0 with the addition of proper biomes, and thank God it was removed. When I was replaying alpha version, it was sometimes annoying when I have to regenerate world because I don't want to play with constant snow around me. In survival test, creepers did melee damage to the player. In in-depth 0.31, this feature was removed. In Java Edition Alpha version 1.2.2a, the players had the ability to spawn nether portals by pressing F4. In Alpha 1.2.2b, spawning nether portals using F4 was removed. In early in-depth versions, the player could open the inventory screen and view the name and 3 stats: ATK, DEF, and SPD, probably standing for attack, defense, and speed. These existed only briefly. When asked, Notch stated that he could not remember exactly why they were implemented and subsequently removed, and he assumed that they were placeholders for Wagyu plans. Glass pillars were a debug feature used to mark the location of strongholds, since the Eye of Ender did not lead to strongholds yet. One pillar extended from the main entrance and another from the portal room, both from the stone bricks to the build limit. They were accidentally left in the public release of Java Edition Beta 1.9 pre-release 3 and were removed in the next update. Erosions, also known as basins, are terrain features that strip away the surface layer of blocks in a small area, exposing the stone underneath. They were accidentally removed in 1.18, but they still remain in the Bedrock edition. When 1.3 split client and server logic, several features lost significant functionality. While some of these have been effectively restored or at least substituted, many of them remain moved to this day. When the snow golem was built, along with the snow golem, a cloak of snowflake particles would also be generated around it. Similarly, when building an iron golem, a burst of snowball texture particles would also be created at the instant of its spawning. In 12W18A, these particles would no longer appeal at all, and the mobs would just phase into existence with no further effects. In 17W47A, due to changes to the breaking of blocks, particles would again be generated upon the creation of the golems, and the first time ever with the wither. However, these particles are functionally and fundamentally different. Where the particles were themed for the mob at first, these particles were simply the result of the constituent blocks being broken by the game, and as such were block breaking particles using the textures of the blocks in question. The actual particles for these 3 mobs still remain to be fixed. Prior to the client-server split, minecarts were capable of pushing players and would react immediately and change direction when pushed. However, minecarts no longer push the player and turn very sluggishly. When ghasts were first added, they would expand slightly before shooting a fireball, similarly to a creeper about to explode. This created the effect of the ghast charging a fireball, rather than just opening its mouth and firing it. However, this effect was not properly networked from the server to the client, causing it not to work in multiplayer. And as a result, when single player was changed to use an internal server, the effect broke there too. The expand code was removed entirely in release version 1.8, and it's now considered to be working as intended by Mojang. Well, that's it for the video. Minecraft's developers removed and disabled lots of things in the game. Some of them returned from time to time, but most of them are forgotten and we will never see them again. It's a pity. Few of them were pretty interesting and I think Mojang will never come back for them. At least I hope Illusioner will find his place in them games soon. There are still lots of mobs, blocks and all other features that once were in the game, and I think it's worth to discuss them next time. So subscribe, leave a like, and I'll see you in the next video.